Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Wherever you are in the world, whether it's morning, evening, or afternoon, you are part of the violence prevention community by being here. So thank you for taking the initiative to learn more about the status of women and empowerment self-defense. This webinar is hosted by ESD Global. We are a nonprofit organization dedicated to spreading the principles of empowerment self-defense across the globe and toward establishing empowerment self-defense as a key strategy in the prevention of violence against women and all vulnerable populations across the globe. We are really excited to be joined here today by our partner organizations. We are here joined by El Halev, My Power, Pave Prevention, and Power of XYZ, who have partnered with us to participate in the 66th NGO Commission on the Status of. We're delighted to be part of an event that has been such a long-standing staple of the conversation in preventing violence against women. And I am very excited to introduce our first presenter today. Molly Singer is the Executive Director of ESD Global, and she will be presenting on the importance of anger when we speak about women and we speak about violence prevention in general. Molly Singer has over 25 years of experience building effective strategies, programs, and teams to achieve ambitious goals, to expand opportunities in communities. She came to ESD Global from Washington, D.C., where she was the Executive Director of a senior services organization. Singer has distinguished her career by focusing on equity and inclusivity of populations before those terms were popular. Her mission is always to engage the impacted populations to create the solutions. She has worked with differently abled students and athletes on national demonstrations. She has led U.S. presidential initiatives around environmental justice. She's worked with HIV-impacted youth to design and execute a multi-pronged strategy to reduce HIV in North Carolina. She is a graduate of Drew University. She has served on a number of community and international nonprofit boards. She now lives in Boston with her family. She loves to bake. She's a mediocre knitter. And she considers her superpower to be to transform any body of information into a one-page summary. Molly also happens to be my supervisor at ESD Global, so I know that this is true. My name is Collins. I'm the online learning and engagement manager at ESD Global. I'm really excited to introduce our first presenter, Molly. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Rachel. It is great to be here. And I want to start off by telling you a little bit more about myself. I have 53 first cousins, and only 9 of them are girls. I grew up in such a strong culture of maleness and the supposition of correctness among men that I considered myself an anti-feminist through 9th grade. I was not anti-feminist. It was just ingrained to me that feminists were crazy radicals. And I was, to avoid them at all costs. So in this presentation, next slide, we're going to talk about why being angry can be good for our health and how ESD is working across the globe to help women understand oppression, access their anger and their rights to it, as well as their rights to everything else, and prevent and defend themselves against violence in their lives. Next slide. Now, I have a question for you. What was your first memory of subverting the gendered paradigm? When did you first not act like a lady? And I encourage you to share your thoughts in the chat, or simply think about them for yourself. For me, my first memory of subverting the male paradigm was when I refused to wear a shirt as a child. I have 4 older brothers, and I thought it was unfair that in the summer they got to run around without their shirts on and I wasn't allowed to. So I happily lost my shirt whenever I could. And also during those years, I was the fastest student in my 3rd grade class, and my mother scolded me for not running like a lady. I'm still not sure how to bat my eyelashes while running as fast as possible, and I want to make sure that we take a minute to remind ourselves that we are justified in behaving however we behaved. However we chose to subvert the gendered paradigm is okay. Next slide. Now, a little herstory. Traditionally, we are told that we cry because we're sad. We're told that men's anger is masculine and strong, and women's anger is unfeminine, and it makes us ineffective at work. Men's anger is a problem-solving technique. And the reality is these messages that women and girls don't express anger. We cry, we internalize, we demonstrate passive and submissive behaviors. We don't get angry, we get quiet and sad. Anger is socialized away. Next slide. So what's interesting, though, is that we are all sad for the same reasons. Regardless of age, demographic, geography, social status, the most pervasive theme of women's anger is powerlessness. 2/3 of anger-producing situations involved this theme. That just amazes me. A second theme is injustice, which includes accounts of unfair or disrespectful treatment, betrayal of trust, son is lying, a coworker is blaming for a mistake on the job, condescending behavior, irresponsibility. The third behavior is irresponsibility in terms of the way that women believe a job or a relationship or a situation should be handled, and the coupling person or institution does not behave accordingly, and for me, I will give a personal example of it might be the way that my husband cleans the bathroom. But whatever it is, it's that sort of not somebody else not living up to their responsibility. And then the fourth reason for anger is what is called vicarious anger or stress. And that's when women are angry on behalf of another person's situation. I thought it was amazing that it was the same everywhere. Next slide. So here's some interesting things. Parents talk to girls more than boys about emotions and emotion regulation. However, by and large, they do not speak of anger to girls. Instead, they speak of sadness, envy, and guilt. And when parents do speak to boys about emotions, it is overwhelmingly about anger. Likewise, according to studies, and I will say that these are generally North American studies, social authorities, teachers, parents, etc., expect girls to regulate their emotions more effectively than boys. And they teach them that expressing negative emotions is socially unacceptable. And if you look at this slide in front of you, girls expressing negative emotions leads to feelings of sadness, and they learn that it's socially unacceptable. And then that leads to girls not standing up for themselves, internalizing their emotions and losing awareness of it. And, and this, of course, leads to clinical depression, anxiety disorders, etc., in such a way that, and if you think about anger, 43% of assaults happen before the age of 18. So we can consider what the long-term effects with that is. Starting in adolescence, women show greater rates of clinical depression and anxiety disorders. One statistic says that 30% of young women who are teens have anxiety disorders. Next slide. And before you are some dangers of not expressing anger. My question to you is, what happens when you swallow your anger? For me, when I was a child, I was defiant in school. As an adult, I have neck cramps and I had to spend $100 on a mouth guard that I sleep with so I don't grind my teeth. And to note, the greater the social disadvantage that a woman is at, meaning lower income, lower education, etc., the less likely she is to express anger, and therefore the more likely she is to have these expressions of, these poor health outcomes, such as are listed here. Next slide. So I think it's time to get mad. Here's a very interesting quote. Hopefully, I would highly recommend the book Rage Becomes Her, The Power of Women's Anger by Soraya Shamali. She has done an amazing study of anger and has beautifully discussed ways to rechannel our anger. In fact, it was reading her book that inspired this presentation. Next slide. So the question is, how do you feel when you express anger? Again, think for yourself. Add it in the chat if you wish to. Oh, did I? And for me, when I express anger, there's an immediate catharsis. And then there's a guilt. Nevertheless, managing anger and mitigating its causes leads to a feeling of achievement, feelings of better health, better sleep, and stronger relationships. So there are many positive outcomes of expressing anger and not swallowing it. Next slide. Women's lives are in danger of being socially negated in ways that deprive them of meaning and make them invisible. This takes up residence inside their souls and gives them a sense of illegitimacy. If one has a sense that her existence is illegitimate, then one surely has no right to express a disruptive emotion such as anger. This quote came from Gary Becker from the University of Chicago, who's a Nobel laureate in behavioral economics, who has done amazing research around how racism and discrimination affect health and the long-term impacts in terms of economic well-being for individuals and communities. Gary Becker. Next slide. So now I'm very excited to tell you a little bit about ESD Global and how we are working to empower women to trust their anger, to trust their gut feeling, their instinct, to understand and channel their power, and to stop violence. And furthermore, to teach others to do the same. I am coming to you from Greece, where we just have finished 2 weeks of training with people on the move. And I want you to understand that this is an understatement of what we do. But let me tell you more. So first, let me explain what empowerment self-defense is. Sometimes those of us in the field feel like we get too much in the weeds and expect everyone else to understand this. So empowerment self-defense is a system designed to avoid danger and de-escalate conflict. And it's designed by and for women, largely, although of course it can apply to many populations. It increases confidence in participating in social and economic systems, increases self-efficacy. I know I can figure out how to solve this problem. I'm not powerless in this situation. It builds physical self-defense skills. And we have implemented empowerment self-defense trainings for individuals in 78 countries across a spectrum of gender-based violence, including physical violence, economic violence, social violence, etc. We work closely with individuals in their community so that we partner with organizations to really rely and address and work from their knowledge base of what their forms of violence are in their community and what the impacts of violence are, so that it's specialized and if, directly impacts them. ESD, you can read here, part of how we teach ESD is helping people understand the truths and the myths around violence against individuals. For example, it's most likely to occur in individual settings. There's a history of psychology and patterns. Once people understand that, they're better able to avoid it. We build awareness of individual personal strength, both in terms of trusting their own ability to recognize it, their individual instinct, as well as their physical ability, regardless of size. Hard parts of my body to soft parts of somebody else's body is going to cause pain. And we do a great deal of work to facilitate collaboration among individuals in a training. Next slide. So now I've told you about what ESD is, and ESD Global is an organization that trains trainers. And here's a map of where we are this year. In this year alone, we're doing 22 trainings at a minimum across the globe that will impact within 1 year over 33,000 women. We advocate for ESD in communities along with other safety measures, better lighting, not putting the women's public showers next to the bar, things like that. And we work to incubate new approaches to promote teaching and learning of ESD, such as through professional networks, consulting efforts, online learning. We are currently working in Albania with the Ministry of Education to teach ESD in all the high schools. We have a pilot program running this year with 15 high schools. And the grand goal is to change the social norms about violence against women. It's not acceptable, period. And we do that by partnering in communities, planting the seeds, and letting individuals, leaders, and groups take it from there. Next slide. Now, let me share a little bit about kind of the methodology behind our work. We work with community members, as I mentioned, to build cohorts, develop strategies, and leverage local resources, whatever they are. And we do this through peer and applied learning. And what do I mean by that? Individuals understand, integrate information and behavior changes when messages come from peers. And I think this is easy for all of us to understand, because either as a daughter or a mother, my mother could try to tell me things 15 ways, but if my friends told me at school, I would believe it. I would not believe my mother, but I would believe my friends, and I would change my behavior accordingly. And I think it's still true. Friends turned me on to yoga. friends give me great recipes to try as a vegetarian, etc. The second methodology that we engage, and I'll tell you a little bit, in Latin America, we have an all Latinx staff and trainers who know Latin and South American communities and can access community leaders. So there's not a translation between cultures and between understanding and approaches and understanding resources. The second methodology we use is social cognitive theory. And I referred to this a little bit earlier. We are working with the Ministry of Education, UN Women, and the Embassy of Sweden in Albania to teach ESDs in high schools as a part of the health curriculum. And we've taught 30 educators, and they are 6 months into a pilot. And in terms of health education, the basis of social cognitive theory, which I'm sure a lot of you know, is for an individual to make a behavior change, one has to understand their risk. Smoking is bad. Acknowledge the risk. As a smoker, I'm engaging in unhealthy behavior. Change behaviors. I'm not going to smoke anymore, and change the peer norms around behaviors. I'm going to get my friends to quit smoking. So the goal is to work in Albania in the schools to do just that. And the third theory that we're using is called the community organizational theory, which means that we work across a community leveraging resources, and we work to prioritize. We have participatory decision-making. We work to prioritize health issues. It's strength-based, so we don't talk about what we can't achieve. We talk about what we can achieve, and it relies on collective mobilization. Let's all work together on a particular issue instead of working separately on disparate issues. And it relies on participation across the community. So whoever you are, the children can do this, the store owners can do this. You know, if we all come together, it will work. Next slide. So let's talk about the impact. ESD is a proven intervention, and it has proven to change behavior, which means changing knowledge, attitudes, beliefs, and intentions about reducing victimization. As I mentioned, right now I am in Greece. We just concluded 2 weeks of training with leaders and individuals in refugee communities, and we worked both with refugee staff members and with refugees themselves to work on reducing the impacts of trauma and victimization. Likewise, there is evidence that sexual survivorship benefits is, let me see how I can say this. So in Malawi, there was a decrease in sexual violence among young women because they knew how to avoid and defend themselves in violent situations. Likewise, self-defense training decreases women's chances of experiencing victimization, and it has a proven association with recovering from a trauma. And furthermore, another great evidence impact of ESD is that in education, of course, it reduces violence in primary and secondary schools, but it also, students develop stronger self-discipline. They have better respect for their teachers and their classmates, and they show increased collaboration. Also shows increased persistence in getting to school. People are more determined, which reflects back to the self-efficacy that I discussed earlier. So ESD, next slide, please. We have a vision for growing the movement, and I'm going to avoid too much math, but you know, if you want, I am happy to break out an Excel spreadsheet. So we are committed to scaling the implementation of ESD training worldwide. And if we were able for 10 years to continue just with the scale that we are at, with the pace that we are at this year, in 10 years, through the number of people that we've reached, we will be able to reach 3.1 million people a year by 2032, which will mean, you know, within a lifetime of an individual, they will be trained in ESD Global. It is, you know, ESD really is key for helping people understand violence, tapping into their anger, recognizing their anger, and their right to not being angry, and their right to addressing the factors that make them angry. Next slide. Oops. And sorry, I've just lost my screen here. Sorry, I can't see. Okay, and here, next slide again. We're just beginning on this path, and I want to share with you another quote by Sonaya Shamali. Anger is the emotion that protects us against danger, our instinct, unfairness, and injustice. Understanding it and learning to think about its methodical uses in response to threats allows girls and women to move from passivity, fear, and withdrawal to awareness, engagement, and change. And this is exactly what empowerment self-defense training does and what ESD Global is working to achieve. Last slide. Thank you very much. And I will hand it back over to Rachel.
Thank you so much, Molly. I want to remind everyone that we can ask questions in the chat. Molly sees the chat, and so do I. For just a few minutes, I want to kind of take questions and see if we can get a little more information from Molly about the specifics. Thank you so much. I know that as an instructor of ESD, I think the moment when women can tap into that anger and begin to use it in what they're practicing is one of the parts of teaching empowerment self-defense that will never get old. And I think that that's something that kind of hooks new instructors too, is that moment when that light bulb comes on. Do you feel like from your research, there are patterns in when women discover that inner power? What has your life and your study of this topic taught you about women discovering the strength that comes from that?
Well, based on my experience, and this isn't really my research, it's just my research of being a human being and a woman, I think it ebbs and it flows. And I think that research supports this, that there are times when, you know, for example, at least in the United States, females are outperforming males until about 7th grade in school. And then with the onset of adolescence, it seems as though females take a step back, have a lower sense of self-esteem, etc. But then in high school, it comes back and girls are outperforming boys in high school. Likewise, now more women go to American colleges than men. So I feel as though there's like a, you know, a real kind of ebb and flow to it through a lifetime. And I think, you know, economic dependence matters. So for women that stop out of the workforce, the paid workforce, I should say, and are raising children, there's a sense of disempowerment. When they go back in, there's a sense of empowerment. But I'm interested to hear anyone else's opinion on that.
Thank you. We have a couple questions in the Q&A. the one that I think we'll have time for is, do you have insight on how to manage the negative effects of anger? I know that, you know, we're speaking on a global scale, but we start at an individual scale. Is that something that you, I know there's no one way, but if there were, what would that be for you?
You know, this is interesting. I would welcome people to put it in the chat here. At our training, we were talking about that this week. For me, managing anger and stress, I have a very physical response and I tend to stretch. I do a downward dog. Also, probably moving into child's pose. And there is evidence that that physical position helps people calibrate internally. I think a lot of people do writing. You know, some people listen to music. I mean, that was just the evidence this week from the training where we had individuals from Iran, Afghanistan, Spain, France, the Netherlands, the United States. So, you know, there's a small global survey for you, but I'd be interested to see what other people do to manage their anger.
I think that's a very interesting tie-in with ESD as well. I know there is significant, you know, research on, you know, martial arts, which ESD is much more than just physical self-defense. That's one of the things.
Absolutely.
But I know that physical engagement and the experience of seeing how powerful your body can be, anyone's body can be, regardless of strength or ability or any of those factors. I think that is well established, you know, brings us through the cycle of emotions. Anger being one that gets stuck for women or blocked, I suppose. It doesn't just get stuck, it gets stopped by all of them. So, you know, articulately laid out. So I think that, you know, definitely brings us back to the importance of ESD once again.
Absolutely. And for folks who, I see things in the chat, and I will respond to some of your questions individually, like are we present in Indonesia, etc. I will send you chat notes back to tell you where we do have trainings planned and how you can be in touch with us.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Molly. We'll look forward to participating with you in the chat. Maybe post in there as well where folks can get more information about ESD Global if they're interested.
Absolutely.
We will move on to a very natural segue to our second presentation in this webinar today, which is from Arlene Lemus and Mandy Maloon of Pave. You're going to be hearing more about what Pave does in the world. They're going to be talking about the circle of women empowerment in the workplace and how this relates back to our topic of empowerment, self-defense, and preventing violence more broadly. Thank you so much for being here, Mandy and Arlene. A little bit more about our presenters. Arlene Lemus is the CEO of Pave Prevention. She has been deemed one of the greatest Taekwondo athletes of the 20th century. She made history on December 17th, 1988, when she became the first American woman to win a gold medal at the 24th Olympic Games in Seoul, Korea. In the sport of Taekwondo, she seeks to advocate for personal and empowerment, and she wants to bring that to entire corporations in her role as the CEO of Pave Prevention. Her vision is to connect high-level programming with corporations and organizations, addressing counterproductive work behaviors. Our next introduction is Mandy Maloon. She is currently the administrative assistant at Pave Prevention after 20 years as an accomplished athlete and an impressive career in Olympic Taekwondo. After surviving years of abuse during her impressive career, she suffered greatly in the aftermath of speaking out against her abusers and reporting them to her employer. Mandy bravely stood up as the first person in her sport to report habitual abuse and the first person to consistently demand accountability from her aggressors. She called for reform throughout the sport and continues to share her story in hopes of informing others and creating an environment of accountability. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you for that introduction. Molly, thank you very much for your presentation and all the great work that ESD Global is doing, Empowerment Self-Defense Global is doing. We're very appreciative of creating trainers, and we hope that Pave can create opportunities for the trainers that you're producing. As Rachel said, my name is Arlene Limas. I'm the CEO of Pave Prevention, which stands for Proactive Anti-Violence Education. And I feel we're tasked with taking empowerment self-defense and framing it in a way that it lands on the decision makers in corporations at that level. It lands on their ears in a way that they see the value of it, because we know that it has value across the board in all walks of life. But we really feel this imparting of human safety skills can make change in a way that C-suite level decision makers can hear us, meaning we can improve productivity, we can increase profits, we can engage employees in a different way. So that's what we're tasked with. We take it incredibly serious that we are reducing violence in the workplace, and that's our goal. So how did I transition from an Olympic champion, a world champion, a high-level national coach to Pave Prevention? To me, it was a no-brainer, because I view an athlete as their sport being their job, and the workplace, their field of play, and their training facilities being their workplace. And I witnessed on numerous occasions from incivility to full-blown sexual assault happening in the athletic world. And it's something I worked very passionately against and tried to stop for many years. And so when I was asked to take helm of Pave Prevention and take that idea of reducing this type of violence in the workplace, it made much sense to me to just transition and be able to make that parallel and correlation. So with that said, I'm going to introduce my coworker, Mandy Maloon. I had the opportunity to watch Mandy Maloon really grow up within the sport of Taekwondo, and continues to inspire me with her strength. I'm going to try to have a conversation with Mandy that allows her to share her story with you, and then share a little bit of how that fits into what Pave is doing. So Mandy, I'm just going to start by asking you a few questions. Could you share with us what a 13-year-old Mandy was doing?
Well, by the time I was 13 years old, I was the best female Taekwondo athlete in the United States. And my dad started training me at the age of 7, but at a certain point, he knew he couldn't take me to the next level. So he saw an advertisement for a junior camp at the Olympic Training Center. And he sent me there at 13, and that's where I was discovered by the Olympic coach at that time. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so around 13 or 14 years old, you had your dream job, or what most people would see as a dream job. And over the next 10 plus years, the Olympic Committee invested over $1 million into you as a high level and a high achieving athlete. Do you feel that they protected their investment?
Well, the first day at the camp as a 13-year-old, I was already being sexually harassed and groomed by one of the camp counselors, who eventually became the Olympic coach in the early 2000s. So I had this happening to me. And at that age, I was a very young, sheltered 13-year-old. My dad wasn't having those conversations of how to protect myself or what to look out for. So I was being discovered, recognized. My dream and my family's dream, we didn't have a lot of money, was coming true. But at the same time, I was being assaulted, and I blamed myself.
Well, I'm going to pivot. Do you still blame yourself?
I'm 41 years old now, and I've done a lot of work, and I'm a mother of a young daughter, and I do not blame myself. And what was super great, because I am nervous, was, Molly starting with the anger, and anger saved me. And I'll get more into that later, but I do not blame myself now, but my recovery will be lifelong. And I work at it every day, all day.
Great. Okay. Thank you. So I went off a little script there, so I'm sorry for that, but it just,
okay.
Okay. All right. So when did you feel strong enough to use your voice and report?
Well, I was 20 years old when I officially reported, but I'll go back. By the time I was 14, I was employed by the U.S. Olympic Committee. They were signing my checks. They were paying my plane ticket, my housing. It was my job. So what was the two catalysts for me was it was one thing that it was happening to me and I was taking it in and hiding it. But when it happened to a teammate and I had to drive her across country in the middle of the night because she had been raped and assaulted and drugged by her coach at a competition. And when another team member who was training with us committed suicide. After that, I couldn't do it anymore. It's one thing to let things happen to you, but to see it happen to other people. So what I did, I had a 9th grade education, but I knew to write something out, walk into the office. I did everything the right way. And I filed my report and also told them verbally in 2006. This is 2006. And within that paperwork, all I asked for was, can I please be treated professionally like the other male athletes? Can I have rights to my body? Because they were controlling my weight. Can I not be assaulted? Can I get an education? Can I get therapy? And can I have safe housing on these trips so that I wouldn't be raped? And they told me no.
So if you could just talk a little bit more about what happened when you reported. So you touched on this, but
yeah, this is in the office in Colorado with the CEO and then the CEO of the U.S. Olympic Committee. They initially said, we'll keep paying you, take a couple months break, go on vacation. Hindsight, with the hopes that I would just disappear because I was a wreck. I was in and out of hospitals. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I came back because our cycle is year round. You don't make that team, you're done. It was my identity. It was how I took care of myself. My parents stopped taking care of me at 13. The next step was when I wouldn't retract, my accusations, allegations with proof. I was the #1 Olympic male or female best athlete getting ready to go to the 2000 Olympics. They gave me a contract. They said, Mandy, we will give you everything you want. All you have to do is sign this. It says you lied, you're mentally ill, you're getting treatment, and then you can go to the Olympics. I said no. The only other reason I did it was me being the toughest woman in the sport told them it was happening to me too, I naively believed that they would do something about it and protect everybody else, including myself. And they did the complete opposite.
So I'll also add in there that when you say, they asked you to sign this contract, by not signing that contract, you lost your financial support, you lost your house, your housing, you lost your ability to train at a high level, and you lost your job.
In one day.
Yeah. Okay.
In one day. Mm-hmm.
All right. So what are you doing now? And how do you see it making a connection to what you experienced?
Well, this was in 2006 and 2007, and losing all that in one day, I was on the street. All I knew, my qualifications for any job was to beat people up. And you cannot transition that into the real world also without a high school diploma at that time. And to me, any job is a good job. I was a construction worker. I cleaned houses. I was a waitress. I was a cocktail waitress in and out of women's shelters. It was rough, but I kept going. And the only reason I kept going is because I knew internally I was telling the truth and I was doing what was right. Fast forward to 2015, I'm contacted. By this time, I have a young child. On the surface, everything seems okay, but internally, I was depressed. I couldn't function. I couldn't leave my home. I was always scared. I was notified that first of all, they never did an investigation in 2006. And now they were going to start one in 2015 because tons of women and men finally came forward because they felt safe. And after that, the real healing began. And I'll never forget when you reached out with UD to offer me a scholarship to go to an ESD Global Training Camp in New York. And that's where the real recovery for me started. And it wasn't pretty, but I kind of feel like I found my tribe.
And that has led you to Pave. So
yes, it did lead me to Pave. And what was funny is that, and I'm going to be real with you, when I was at that camp, I was still so traumatized. I couldn't fully participate. And I remember, because there's these big, beautiful trees, and I would run into the woods because I couldn't breathe. And I would hide and smoke cigarettes and freak out that if I told you guys what I was really feeling, you would reject me. But it was the complete opposite. And I'm forever grateful to you guys for that.
Thank you, Mandy. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for allowing me to ask you these questions. And thank you for being a part of Pave.
Can I link the Pave thing? Why Pave is so important and why I'm so passionate. And I love working with you, because I'm going to tell you this. I did everything the right way when I reported. Okay. And if the corporations or the jobs or, your employer does not do the right thing, it doesn't matter. Okay. But it destroys you. It destroys your person. It destroys your family. There were years I couldn't take care of my daughter because of what happened to me. So I love working with Pave.
We love having you. I think everybody understands that we get so much of our personal value, so much of our self-worth from our job, from our work, from what we're doing. So we're very grateful to have you. And thank you for sharing your story.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad to be in this group and meet everybody and hear everybody's stories. So thank you.
So I think that we all see the parallel between sport and real world workplaces, as sport continues, as always, to be a microcosm of life. Mandy's experience and the experience of other athletes is what's inspired me to not only try to keep our athletes safe on the playing field, in and out of the playing field, but also it's what inspires me at Pave. At Pave, we see an empowerment circle of success that needs to be created in the workplace. This last week, we lost our first Secretary of State, our first female Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright. And I think it's fitting to share a quote of hers. "The reason I made women's issues central to American foreign policy was not because I was a feminist, but because we know that societies are more stable if women are politically and economically empowered. I believe that there have been steps taken to create more inclusive workplaces and give women more opportunities. Some only by checking a box or giving the illusion, but at least we're becoming a part of the conversation. What I would argue and what I would add to that is that if we're being more inclusive, hiring more women, creating more opportunities for women in the workplace, but we're not keeping them safe, we're not getting the return on our investment that we need. And that's where I see the parallel with what happened to Mandy to what's happening in workplaces day in and day out. If we're not taking the steps to protect our investment, to reach the end and return on our investment, we're not giving women the opportunity to succeed. And then our businesses are not succeeding, our corporations are not succeeding. Everyone loses. Just as everyone lost in Mandy's case. There was no real return on the over $1 million that the Olympic Committee invested in Mandy. And of course, there was incredible loss for what Mandy endured herself. As we say at Pave, the dominoes of violence continued to fall. This is being mirrored in companies, in organizations, and institutions worldwide every day. Women are dealing with the full spectrum of violence, whether that be incivility and microaggressions to physical and sometimes fatal events. If we empower individuals at work through trauma-informed training that imparts human safety skills, such as learning how to set a boundary, learning how to use your voice, being aware of situations around you, situational awareness, trusting your intuition and building your intuition muscle, and identifying inappropriate coercion. And if we create that, if we use those tools to then further out and create systems that support healthy and safer workplaces, I believe we can create a circle of success for women in the workplace. And what I mean by this is by empowering women in the workplace, it gives them opportunity at professional growth, but also financial stability. If we take that into the home, now we are empowering the home and thriving the home. That in turn spills over into the community in which this family lives in. And that spills into society on a whole. And guess what? The individuals that now come out of this new empowered society enter the workplace. And that circle of success continues to grow outward and outward. And this is, I would also argue at this point that we have a real chance of impacting and disrupting generational trauma and generational loss. I mean, this has the possibility of impacting generational poverty, homelessness, generational contributors to domestic violence. I mean, the ripple effect, the idea of flipping the dominoes in the other direction and creating these dominoes that fall in a more positive manner are just incredible. I'll share with you some statistics. There are thousands of statistics that you could find to support this, but these feel very powerful to me. According to the European Union's Agency for Fundamental Rights, and I'll preface this, we know that things are underreported when it comes to violence against women. So these are the reports. According to the reports, 35% of women, 818 million globally, over the age of 15, have experienced sexual or physical violence at home, in their community, or at work. Astonishing. Incredible numbers, and we know they're low. In addition to that, 75% of women in leadership say they've been sexually harassed at work. 75%. These numbers are incredible, and we know they're underreported. So I will share a story to try to put things in perspective, but I don't think we need to put it in perspective for this group. But I'll share it with you so you might share it with someone else. Let's imagine we get up in the morning and we stub our toe. After stubbing our toe, I yell out a loud yell, which scares my dog and knocks my water off the night table. The time it takes me to clean up this mess causes me to miss my bus, so I'm late to work. When I get to work, I'm late. I'm having an uncomfortable situation now with my boss and my coworkers, and my day just cannot be normal. I can't stumble through and be as productive as I should be. All I did this morning was stub my toe. Imagine if I were dealing with domestic violence in home, or surrounded by gang violence in my community. Violence is impacting us every day. It's not just a stub toe. So if a stub toe can derail my day, we know that violence is derailing people's day in the workplace. And that's what we aim to change. That's what we aim to change. So Pave exists to create safer workplaces, but that's our Trojan horse. We aim to make the world safer, a safer place in general. So we're data-driven, we're assessment-driven, and we really want to empower the individual, but also organizational change. Mandy, thank you very much for joining me on this presentation. To those in the collaborative who have presented and will present after me, thank you for including us in this. And I'll open up, Mandy and I will open up the floor to any questions.
Thank you so much, Arlene, especially to Mandy for sharing your story. So valuable. And I know that the outpouring of appreciation for that, courage to, take the actions you did and to speak about it, which is a whole other level of courage, is something that inspires a lot of people. So thank you both so much for being here and for your work. There is one question in the Q&A that I think is a good one on the practical side. So we'll start with that. Please feel free to ask further questions. The question is about getting an institution in your local community to prioritize anti-violence education like empowerment, self-defense. If you are an individual trying to, make this more available in your community, maybe you're not an instructor, maybe you want to form a network, get other institutions involved. Is there research or information that you would recommend presenting to institutions like that to show them the value?
I think for us, the way we're framing the importance of this, which we know there is an importance and there is a need for this, is that our program can impact things like high turnover, absenteeism, the lack of presentism. So we have someone there, but they're not producing like they should. So we know that our training can impact that. And through our assessment and through our post-assessments, we'll have an organizational score. So we'll be able to show in 6 months, this increased, in 9 months, this increased, in a year. So I think as we start our program, impacting our program on, more opportunities to do this, the data will speak for itself. But I think it's important that for Pave, we are not framing this as, a self-defense program per se. We are framing this as employee engagement, changing workplace culture, creating a better communication in the workplace, employee wellness, which we know this training has value for.
Thank you. Thank you. I would like to, go back to you, Mandy, and ask whether there have been changes more recently. I know that it's still, not 2006 was not very long ago. And some days it seems, definitely not very long when we look at the experiences that survivors are still having now, 15, 20 years later. Is there more of a community of support among survivors or for survivors? Do you feel encouraged or discouraged by the progress since then?
Well, I definitely feel times have changed, and it's so sad because 2007 to me wasn't that long ago. Myself and a group of women survivors, we sued the USA Taekwondo, which was our employer. And through this whole long process, you learn it's not like Law and Order, you know what I mean? Everything happens and you get prosecution, people go to jail, we deal with statute of limitations, stuff like that. Long story short, we settled a case with the insurance company, but even with that, they will not admit guilt. So as of right now, we're in the process of working with a documentary. And my whole goal is to send people to jail because these are crimes and they happened at my work. So that's what I'm still working on separately from Pave.
Yeah, well, you have all of our, anger that you have to be doing and support that you are doing it. Thank you for your work on behalf of yourself and all survivors. have one other question for you, Mandy, before we switch gears to our third segment today. And that's, as an ESD instructor, I've been instructing for like going on 10 years somehow now. I think that something, you notice patterns in what women tell you at trainings and after trainings, and something that I hear a lot of women of all ages, adults say, is that, I wish I would have had this when I was younger. It would have changed everything. And what I try to do as an instructor is change that from the I wish to, well, what would you say to yourself, or what would you say to someone else that age? I guess I want to ask, is there something that you would say to someone in a similar position that you wish you would have had the support to have someone say to you at that point?
Well, I'm going to be brutally honest, because personally for me, all my assaults, all my trauma happened from people that I trusted, who were close to me, who were in positions of authority starting when I was a child. And it's completely, and I say it too, it's completely different than if I was walking down the street and being attacked by a stranger. So within that, it's the cultural stuff. It's what's happening in your family. It's happening, what's acceptable around you. And I'm going to say this because I experienced it. The hardest thing to do is to be that first person to say no and to try to change things. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to feel good, but you got to stick to it, because it took me 15 years, but it is changing. So that's all I would say to somebody is, you know what I mean? That's my experience.
Yeah. Well, it's changing because of people like you. So I think that is definitely something that, that's a message that I want to help bring to young women and to women of all ages. So again, thank you both, Arlene and Mandy, for being here and for that really powerful presentation. We are going to switch gears to our third segment today. And we are going to speak to Judith Sedikman and Serene Sharabi. Judith is the CEO of My Power Limited. And for a little more information about them, Judith Sedikman, MBA, is the Chief Executive Officer of My Power Limited, a high-tech startup currently developing an application to teach empowerment self-defense. She is a social entrepreneur devoted to the prevention and elimination of violence against women and people vulnerable to violence through empowerment self-defense and violence prevention education. Judith is the founder and president of ESD Global, as well as co-founder and past CEO of El Halev. And Serene Sharabi is the project manager for My Power app at My Power Limited, a resident of East Jerusalem. She holds a BA and a major in English literature and a double minor in business and translation. Serene recently completed an MA in nonprofit management and leadership at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Thank you so much, Judith and Serene, for being here today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here and glad I just unmuted myself. I'm going to start. Actually, my title today in this presentation is as the co-founder and president of El Halev, which is a nonprofit that started in Israel in 2003. And we've been doing women's self-defense, empowerment self-defense, and women's martial arts since then. And one of the exciting pieces of El Halev, my work over the last, the June of 2020, right after COVID hit, I stepped down as CEO of El Halev in order to pursue some other passions, and but we had spent over 10 years professionalizing, learning how to teach people to be really good instructors, and that led me to looking at, well, what does it mean to be professional, and what are the benefits from having those really strong empowerment, self-defense, boundary setting skills that make me a better employer and help me raise up a generation of really good employees. And so a little bit of, let's see, I guess I need to tell you next when I need the next slide, right? There we go. Ta-da. Can I get the next slide? There we go. Okay. So LLEV has been working in Israel teaching. We do a lot of teacher training, and because of the laws in Israel, our teacher training programs are recognized by the Ministry of Culture and Sport, and are a very rigorous program, where including hours of internship on the ground. We go into schools and work with just about any population that you can imagine. And each one of those instructors is given the skills for understanding how to assess the students in front of them and devising for them a group and personal process for their stepping into their personal power. Next slide. Next slide. We get the next slide. Okay. So empowerment self-defense, which has become one of the the largest piece of what we do at LLEV, builds confidence, helps people set boundaries, and broadens their choice in the world. The course that we teach is actually translated from the Hebrew into freedom to choose, because we believe that the skills that we impart to our students are about allowing them to feel confident in making choices that are good for them, and that they have a right to say what they need. This is what I'm feeling, this is what I need, and this is what I want, what I have to have, and being very clear about that. I truly believe that having the physical piece of self-defense is super important, because we know that if you're afraid of what's going to happen, if you set a boundary, if you're afraid of what's going to happen, if you say, hey, don't talk to me like that, or don't touch me, that you might, and you don't know what's going to happen, you might not actually set that boundary because you're afraid what's going to happen. But if you know what to do, if it gets physical, then you'll take the chance to say, hey, I'm not okay with this. So we're gonna, and how does this work in a professional standpoint? So people ask me, have I ever used my empowerment self-defense skills at work? And the answer is I use it all the time. I use it all the time because I'm able to express what I'm feeling as I'm feeling it, and put out on the table what's right or what's wrong and what I want it to come from that. And I'd like to invite my colleague. I think if you click one more time, we may get the rest of that slide. Let's see what happens. And I'm going to ask Sirine to join us.
Yes.
There you go.
Hi. I will discuss the slide, and I will take it from a personal experience here. Being empowered mentally and physically has proved to bolster women's professional fulfillment and their ability to be financially independent, and therefore will have an easy entrance for the workplace. This being said, I want to share that I have always been dared and taught to speak out, and I was lucky enough that I now work in a company that still empowers me every day. and also gives me the chance to empower other women. How? We as a company took Impact course together. It is one of the courses that delivers ESD skills, including awareness of danger, boundary setting, and building a support system. So by having this tool as a part of our workplace, we are building more empowering and accessible place where women can not only survive, but also thrive. We did this, and we have this, and now every other workplace can have it, because we have seen personally how those skills can make every individual stronger, and therefore the company as a whole. We are not only talking about it, we are living it. I have experienced personally how ESD strengthened me, and how our workplace is constantly engaged with ESD, which has created a place that is not just only a collection of empowered women, but also a community of women who empower others. And that is the kind of cycle we wish to create through the My Power app. The My Power app simply puts the choice of power in the hands of anybody who wants it and who needs it. Therefore, if you are a woman who wants to empower herself, now you have an app that teaches you how to set boundaries, defend yourself, and speak out, using techniques that were created by the finest experts of ESD around the world. We see that through ESD and an app, we will empower endless number of women using the most accessible device we have nowadays. Next. Next slide. Okay. Now that I have learned the techniques of ESD, it will pave the way for my professional fulfillment. And how is that? It is by knowing that as a woman, I no longer stress or fear setting boundaries or standing up for myself in the workplace. I have already learned that through ESD courses. And now I can fully focus on my career and goals instead of being distracted by threats or gender-based violence in the workplace. We know that not every woman has access to an ESD class, but almost every woman has a mobile. And therefore, every woman will have access to this life-changing app. I see how scalable the My Power app is. And therefore, we see it also happening in schools, colleges, companies, and organizations, hopefully. Next, I will hand it to Edith now.
So, one, I am thrilled to be working with Serene as our project manager, and her holding me accountable for making decisions on how we can translate the work that we have created at El Halev in the, it's almost 20 years that we've been working at El Halev, and turn that into a platform where the app actually allows you to become your own empowerment self-defense instructor. It's not telling you what to do, it's giving you tools to use to figure out what you need to do, what you want to do, what you need to practice, where you want to go with this, and how you want to step into your own personal power. What we know, or what I know as a self-defense instructor, is I will never be an expert in you or anyone else. I can only be an expert in me. What I can do is help introduce you to tools that will allow you to become experts in yourself. And the app that is being created in partnership with the LLF team is exactly that. How do we put the tools for allowing users to practice ESD skills and boundary settings in their own home, or not in their own home, but in a safe place, so that they can then figure out how to make the decisions they need to do to move on to living a safer life. We can't wait to get this into the hands of young people, and are very excited about that. And I believe there's one more slide. I believe there's one more slide. And I too would like to take a moment to recognize the passing of former U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright, a woman who was a hero to me, with the following. And here is, you know, the last slide said, you're never too young to start. I believe that if we can change how mothers feel about themselves in boundary setting and their abilities to be strong and powerful, that will change children's. There will change their children's lives. Quoting Secretary of State Madeleine Albright, our collective experience has shown that when women have the power to make their own choices, good things happen. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you both so much for being here. I want to ask a little bit more about the two organizations that you two are a part of. We had so many organizations participating today that really just show how all these issues are connected in all these various spaces. Yudit, when starting El Halev, was that something that brought, was that something that there was demand for, or did you feel like you were creating that demand as you went?
So I saw there were a lot of, women in the chat who were sharing that they had some backgrounds in martial arts. And when I started martial arts, I was a 28-year-old mother of 4 kids. I got my yellow belt 7 months pregnant with my 5th child. I wore it as a necktie. And I had, my neighbor dragged me into a judo class, and I fell in love with it. And in 2003, we were a bunch of women martial artists who had gotten to know each other and were really very lonely, because being a woman in the martial arts in a co-ed class means 20 men and me. And I am what makes it a co-ed class, and I'm lucky if another woman walks in. And if she stays more than a month, even luckier. So when we started El Halev, it was really about women martial artists coming together to teach women and girls in a way that we could be role models. And within 2 years, people just kept saying, hey, I don't want to be a martial artist, but I want to learn how to protect myself. And so we looked at how can we do that in the best way without having to dedicate your life to martial arts. I love martial arts. I am honored beyond belief to be a 4th degree black belt in judo and a 1st degree black belt in karate. It has changed my life. And not everybody has to do that. And everybody deserves to be safe. So, we went in a direction that was, wow, let's give people what they really need, which is short, effective self-defense programs. And very excited about that. And one of the programs we teach, which Serene just finished, was an impact program. And impact is empowerment self-defense on speed. So it's adrenaline-based learning with the spooky guy in the suit, where you actually have to set boundaries and he ignores you, and then you have to hit him full force until he determines that you've hit him hard enough, fast enough, which is a whole nother animal. So.
Oh yes, we could talk about the ins and outs of ESD training for a long time. Again, I find the contrast interesting, and the connection, I guess, interesting between a movement that has had organizations that have been around for a while, with women that have been teaching and developing, and inventing these skills as they taught, and pioneered them in their communities. And then Serene, what you were speaking about is a new a new take on this. It's sort of the people joke, at least in the part of the US that I'm in, that anything you could say, like there's an app for that. And now there's an app for this, which is hopefully staying, safer in your communities and having more awareness. Do you want to speak a little bit more about My Power, Serene, and how you see, sort of apps and technology taking the torch from organizations that started this movement all the way into the future?
Okay, so now that we are living in the century we are living in, we are all heading into like apps and high tech, and we still appreciate the classes that we can have in real life. But because of maybe not flexible hours for some people, maybe they can't afford it for others, this app is life-changing. It gives every woman the opportunity to experience what is ESD, and not only experience it, but also learn it. And hopefully within, you can jump in.
I want to add something.
Add it.
Today, if I'm lucky and I scrape all of the lists and all of the places that I've ever found anybody teaching empowerment self-defense, maybe I will get to about 300 instructors. Maybe. 7 billion human beings on Earth. 300 ESD instructors. 7 billion human beings. 1 in 3 women. 1 in 5 men. 1 in 6 boys. 1 in 5 boys. 1 in 6 men. We need to have a solution for scaling. And to me, the app is about getting to more people, identifying who are the change makers, who are in communities that we could then take and funnel to a program like ESD Global's teacher training, so that they can then bring that back into their local communities and do the in-person training also. So it's really, giving you skills and allowing us to identify who are the strong players who we can then say, hey, maybe you want to become a teacher. That's how we can scale.
Absolutely. It makes me think of Molly's slide that she promised wouldn't be too much math about scaling as well. But just of the internet to change and to augment what in-person trainings are doing already. How did you become involved with empowerment self-defense, Serene? I know you mentioned that you took a class at El Halev. What brought you to the work that you're doing today?
I came from a very different background, Rachel. I was in finance and then management. And then I got to know My Power through a Facebook page, and I applied, and then I'm the project manager there, and I was introduced to ESD while I was in the company. But you did took fast steps, and she had me go through impact class. So
wonderful.
That's how.
Thank you for sharing. It's great to hear how different industries are all able to be involved. I know following Pave's presentation as well, it's great to hear that someone from finance and management found their way to the ESD community, so that we can definitely multiply those 300 instructors, loaf and fish style, so that way we can get to everyone. Very needed.
Definitely for everyone. It is
definitely for everyone, and thank you for your work to make that not just a hope, but a reality. I think that and these organizations have so much potential to do that. Thank you both, Udit and Serene. Of course, continue to ask questions in the chat, in the Q&A for any of our panelists. If you wanted to direct to a specific presenter. We are going to move on to our fourth and final presentation today. We are going to speak to Sarah MacArthur, who is a friend of mine. She is a wonderful human being to work with, and she works with an organization called Power of XYZ. A little bit more information about Sarah's presentation. Sarah is going to, be focusing on generational change, something that we just spoke about a little bit in our last presentation as well. As an entrepreneur, Sarah is deeply connected to her mission at Power XYZ, where she serves as CEO. Power is a boutique creative agency dedicated to promoting empowerment self-defense. Sarah experienced a life-shifting transformation after her first ESD class over 11 years ago and is passionate about being part of the global empowerment self-defense movement. Thank you so much for being here, Sarah.
Thank you, Rachel. It's interesting going last because I am so inspired by all the presentations going before. And I'm excited to share about the generational choice, I say, or transformation that has happened in my own family as a result of ESD. So ESD is a researched method of teaching empowerment self-defense. And what's beautiful is that there is research that can be seen, papers done. But today I want to talk about my own personal story and how ESD has brought change to generations in my own family. So this picture here is my mom and my uncles, and then my grandfather and my grandmother. And I brought this picture here because I really would like to talk about how times are changing, and how at the time in their early life, there was less access to services of mental health services. There was less open conversations about trauma, about generational trauma, about healing, going to therapy, those type of things. And so in my family, we have, in this generation, had already experienced generations of trauma, from sexual assault to domestic violence, to mental health struggles. And so it's good to look at the generation above and to know that we can, as a generation, the next generation, can begin to look at what changes can happen in our own life. You can change the slide. So here is my family, my dad and my mom. This is not all of my siblings, but my brother, my little sister, me and my older sister, Anna, in this picture to the left. And then the picture on the right is a much more expansive of, and is still missing my oldest brother and his family, but an expansive view of my family, our siblings, our partners, our children, and our great-grandchildren, great nieces and nephews. And I show this picture because I want to express how this work can really become something that goes entirely through a family. And I wanted to be able to demonstrate how big this family is and how it is impacting each generation. So the picture here on the very right is my older sister, Anna. And Anna, she is in a lot of ways the forerunner in our family to becoming activists, to working on healing trauma, to speaking up. She is a domestic violence advocate. She has done a lot of work. She's testified on 2 separate bills. One to make non-fatal strangulation a felony. The second was a habitual offender bill. If a perpetrator is convicted of 3 DV misdemeanors, any charges after that would become felonies. She's also worked on CVAC, Crime Victims Advocacy Council, to give voices to victims through the criminal justice process. She's been doing this work for probably 25 years. And seeing her do that work, I know it really was interesting for me, being a little sister, to see her healing process, to see her stepping out, to see her courage. And she really was somebody who started, I think, many of us thinking about the next level of our own healing and our own stepping out. And so for me, the journey began with my sister-in-law, Claire. She is at the very top on the left. And she she had read about a self-defense class that was happening at the police academy in Colorado, and she invited me to come along with her. So I did. We went to the class and we learned some skills. The one thing they talked about in that class was a book called The Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker. So I was really interested in reading more, learning more. I consider myself a lifelong learner. So I got the book, I began reading. In the book, The Gift of Fear, Gavin de Becker talks about empowerment self-defense through organizations called Impact or Impact Personal Safety. I knew right away it was something that I was interested in because in my background, before the age of 18, I had experienced tremendous amounts of anxiety, bullying, trauma in the home, abuse in the home. I think I said sexual assault. I've just endured quite a few things before the age of 18. And so I really was interested in finding out more. At that time in my life, I was about 28. I felt really paralyzed by my fear of the world, by going out by myself. I was scared that I was going to just be in the wrong place at the wrong time and be a victim. And so I lived my life in such a way that I wouldn't go out at night without my husband at the time. And I really struggled to just live life at that time. I was also really struggling with the levels of trauma I had. I was recently diagnosed with anxiety disorder and ADHD due to the levels of the trauma in my life. So when I heard about Impact, I was really intrigued. I looked up online, found out that Colorado was just starting a chapter there, and got in contact with Amelia Dorn, who is the founder of Impact Colorado. We met, she told me more about the program, and I was really excited, really interested, and terrified all at the same time. And you can change the slide. It was a 16-hour course that I took, or 20-hour course over 2 weekends. And from the time of the second weekend to the graduation, I knew that my life was changed. I felt different. I walked different. I was no longer the same person that I was before I took that class. I knew it. I felt it. And I said, I have to find a way to get involved. So I asked, how do I get involved? And they said, we always need volunteers as assistants. And so I began assisting, and I was able to get enough hours of assisting so that I could help my other family members get discounts and attend classes too. So I was able to get my mother in a training, and this is my mother here, me and my mother in our Ready stance through an Impact class. And so my mother took training, and I've asked her if she would write a little something about what the experience was like for our family as we're looking at changing generational trauma. And this is what she wrote. I'm going to read it. My daughter Sarah took a class to help overcome her fear that we instilled in her over the years. She took the class and fell in love with how it made her feel and was committed to women's self-defense ever since. She worked very hard and had built up enough credits to have some family members take the class. I had separated from my husband of 37 years. He was verbally abusive and physically abusive to my sons. Taking this class helped us all gain more confidence and feel free to set our boundaries with him and others. These are the family members that have taken the class. Of course, Sarah, me, Anna, Dominic, Claire, Lydia, and the next generation, Chase, Sarah's son, 11, and Lily and Ella, Dominic and Claire's twins, 9. I'm so proud of Sarah and her company XYZ she's created with Michael, Nikki, Emily, Anna, Nicole, and the other team members she works with. Sarah has always loved Impact and now works with these fantastic organizations. It's just where she wants to be. Impact Personal Safety of Colorado changed our lives and continues to do so to this very day. We walk with our heads held high and always ready in our stances if we need them. And I wanted to share that because I think it's so important that as our mother, she was able to take this class she was able to experience transformation from it. And having my brothers and sisters all take the class, each experiencing some level of transportation, each different from each other, and have a love for it, helped us all as a family to begin to shift our generations to the next generation coming. So we begin to talk more. We begin to teach emotional well-being and emotional intelligence to the next generation. We begin to teach them about boundaries, and we respected their boundaries. So we made a decision as a family that if the little kids decide they didn't want to hug us, they wouldn't have to. We begin to teach them about their body boundaries and their voice and nonviolent communication. And my son took a class when he was 6 and when he was 8. And one of my favorite things is to have seen him with a friend that was kind of egging him on and pushing him a little bit, is to put his hands up and tell them to stop. And also to hear him use the nonviolent communication that he learned in class. Because after my training, I became an instructor and then became the executive director of Impact Colorado. My son was always with me. He went to board meetings. He went to events. He grew up in Impact. He has a love for Impact. And when I attended Jerusalem in 2020 for a level 1 self-defense, he was with me and he actually got to do a demonstration for people there. And so he is growing up in a space where he sees powerful women. We talk about inequalities that have happened. We talk about emotions. So he gets to say to me, Mom, I'm feeling sad, or I feel like I'm really struggling this. And he uses his voice to express those things. This past summer, I had the honor to work with my brother and sister-in-law and my nieces who are 8 in a private family class. So my brother and sister-in-law have taken a class, and even an advanced class, and now their children have taken a class. And my sister-in-law sent me a note to just say, seeing the girls take the class made her realize how important this work is for children, because as children, they're learning skills that will help them to not only prevent violence, but speak up and to not have to experience life through fear in a way that she did, in a way that kept her paralyzed. So from this, you can go ahead to the next slide. So from being a student, my passion only grew to becoming an assistant and then to becoming an instructor. And like with my family, how I saw change happening, what I began to see as an instructor was that this work was impacting the people around it, the people who were taking it. We saw children and parents taking classes together, now getting the same language around safety, value, health, telling, disclosing, and practicing it together was a beautiful experience. We saw teens have a different dynamic shift of not having to engage in violence when maybe they felt like they had to because they had no choice before. We saw women who begin to speak up more, ask for raises, just set boundaries that maybe they hadn't set before. It was really incredible. And so that part of my experience was great. I got to teach certain friends. I got to experience and support my family as they continue to do it. And that has led, you can go to the next slide, to our family passion of advocacy. So my sister has used her experience and has now come into ESD world using her 20 years of experience in violence prevention, in domestic violence, to help increase the words about what we're doing. She works with Impact Colorado, and I myself am a passionate advocate, as you can probably see, to the work of ESD. Even in this last year, and starting at Power of XYZ, which is a creative company to help spread the word about ESD. And I've been very busy and talking to my son about it. And he says, no, Mom, I know that you're busy, but the work you're doing is important and the world needs it. So keep doing it. You can change the slide. So advocacy of speaking our stories, telling our truths, speaking together. It's really a beautiful experience that we see in the generation of siblings. But what's more beautiful is seeing what happens to the next generation of the kiddos. If you'll switch to the next slide. So my son, like I said, my son has taken the program. And so this is my son and the two nieces that have taken this program. And then here on the upright of the women, 5 of the 6 of us have taken it. My niece on the left, she will be taking soon, but she has also seen her aunties and her grandmother and her mother do this work. And so even from that experience, she sees boundary setting, she sees nonviolent communication, she's seen those things. And then she has brought that on the very bottom right are my great nieces and nephews. And they walk in the world in a different way than we ever did. They know body autonomy. They know they have boundaries. They know they can speak up. These children, they know they can ask for what they need. They know that they can express anger and other emotions than just anger. They know that they don't have to hug anybody or accept hugs from anybody. And it's really a beautiful story of generational choice. And the reason I say generational choice is that based on my own trauma, what I found was that trauma stole from me many things. One of them being my boundaries. I'm going to get emotional. One of them being my voice. One of them having the choice of who I wanted to be and how I wanted to be in the world. And this work has restored choice to me, has restored my voice to me, has restored boundaries to me, and has given me the opportunity to continue over 11 years, to continue the work, to continue to be who I want to be, who I choose to be. And now that has gone to the next level of the next iteration is running a company with the principles of ESD, with the principles of empowerment, boundary setting, nonviolent communication, and support for one another, and seeing how these principles that can be lived individually can also be done in a corporation, can be done in an organization, and can be done with staff. And it makes me excited for what Pave is doing. It makes me excited for the other companies who are looking to bring more nonviolent communication opportunities to the experience that they have. So I am forever grateful for what impact and ESD has done for me. I know for myself, I have been better able to ask for raises or job promotions. I know that I have better been able to have difficult conversations that make me, sometimes I cry during difficult conversations still, but after years of trying to change that, it just hasn't. So I go with it now. I know that I can ask for the things that I need with friends and family. I know that I can ask my family, you know, if I'm just having a hard time, because living with PTSD can mean that daily there's a hard time. So some days I just need more space and less connectivity. And I know I can say those things to my family and have the support that's needed. So, and that goes outside of that. There's a community in ESD that really allows for these experiences, these conversations, these opportunities, the courage, the bravery, because there's an understanding, just like right now, I know that many people that I very much care about and who care about me are watching this. There is an ability that together, we can spread the word. Together we can support each other. Together we can find courage. Together we can share the word about this kind of work. Together we can share the data that works, that's out there. Together we can share the evidence, and our stories help other people to be seen, to be heard, but also to say, hey, how do I get involved? And that is what my heart's passion is about, and what we at Power of XYZ want to do is we are a creative organization who focuses on storytelling and sharing the word about ESD with the clients that we have. And we're very, very excited and thankful to have this opportunity to share with you how ESD can be so transformative in communities, but also within families. This picture on the bottom next to the kiddos, unfortunately, my mom got cut out a little bit, but this is a 5-generation photo of my grandmother who was not able to experience impact, but saw the effects of impact on our family, who also invested in our healing work. My mother, who has done impact, my sister, who has done impact, and my niece and great niece, who live life because of in a different way because of their understanding of healing, changing generations, and the work we've done in impact. So thank you very much for having me, and happy to answer any questions there might be.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I think you mentioned at the start that it was difficult to follow the preceding 3 presentations. It didn't seem like it was, and I also think that it was very appropriate because we ended on a personal story about how ESD changes lives, and I think that's the connection that I want to ask you about. It seems to me that breaking generational trauma is something you mentioned is such a large part of that is breaking the silence that comes with the continuation of those things. Lack of information is what allows the perpetuation of those patterns. And so using your voice and being able to speak up is central to that. How do you see ESD specifically as empowering people to use their voices, their ability to speak and to share their stories as a way to break generational violence and global violence too?
Right. Great question. I know for me, it was the experience in practice of when learning about boundaries, because I didn't really even understand what boundaries were. So getting a better knowledge of understanding of boundaries, that I could have them, what they look like, but 2, learning skills around nonviolent communication. In the class we learned a way that we could present our feelings to somebody else and have that conversation in a way that wasn't pointed or blaming or things like that. And I found that really helped me to maybe I was always the best at it initially, but it helped me to begin to think differently about how am I really feeling about this experience? What is the real feeling I'm getting? And then what do I actually need? Because I wasn't used to really feeling about this experience or have what is the real feeling I'm getting? And then I'm really thankful to get to practice those. So for me, learning communication styles, practicing them, crying while practicing them sometimes because it was so foreign to me. I know that in teaching, many people have different experiences. So I know people who really didn't have a problem using their voice and maybe was very strong with using their voice. And a class to them brought them to the place where they can use their voice more softly. For me, my voice was so soft and maybe even non-existent in a lot of ways that learning these strategies helped me, but my confidence that I gained from class helped me. Also, so many skills outside of the physical were very helpful to me in just having an understanding that I could use my voice, but also the physical understanding of my own power helped me to begin to use my voice. So I think practicing using our voice in safe spaces really can help bring courage to using them in practice.
Absolutely. I think it's fascinating, the elements of the previous presentations that are all brought together in your story. I mean, you're speaking about, crying while practicing verbal boundary setting, which I think many ESD students can relate to. And it makes me think of Molly's presentation and of, the book that she's referencing, which I also very much recommend, talking about the need to complete our stress cycle. Somehow physical, activity is one way to do that. And the release of emotion is, another way to do that. And I think that that's something that women get taught to be like ashamed of, but that is such a part of the process. And I thank you for, sharing that, this is all connected, all of these different ways of benefiting from empowerment, self-defense, from the individual to the community to the global level. And that's what I wanted to also ask you about. It seems to me that the silence in families that perpetuates abuse is parallel in some ways to another silence that I've talked to other ESD instructors and advocates about, which is that it's hard to find ESD instructors when you're a younger activist, or you're a younger violence prevention advocate, and or even a new one at any age. And I think that I sort of wandered in the wilderness for a while before I found I found the movement, I found the community, I found the women and where they were and what they were doing, and they were researching and teaching and building, but we didn't know. A lot of us didn't know, and we reinvented the wheel for a while, and missed out on the power in the community and the benefits that being part of a movement brings. So I think that do you feel like that connects to Power of XYZ's mission? It's interesting to me that breaking that silence has been so important to you. And now you're breaking the silence in a different way for a lot of organizations with a specific focus on ESD.
Absolutely. I feel like as part of the community, the more we can talk about ESD, the more we can talk about our stories in safety, right? The more we can share, like Molly shared great statistics and data, the more these conversations are happening, the more people will hear them. But also I feel that as I've grown, like I said, I started my journey 11 years ago. I continue to grow in my ESD journey, and where I am now as a person is becoming very solid in my own values and who I want to choose to be as a person. And so I'm now finding even more courage to have conversations with different people about things that make me uncomfortable, right? So before I had no conversation at all. Now I'm much more willing to have conversations because I always feel like there's so many pieces to a story. People are complicated, stories are complicated. So I think one of the best things we can do is have conversations. If somebody says, I don't get ESD, I can't support it for whatever reason, like, let's have a conversation. Let's talk about it. Let's find the pain points. Let's find why you feel that way. And let me tell you about why I feel this way. Not because you're right and I'm wrong, or I'm right and you're wrong, but let's just have the conversation, because a lot of times in conversation, what we find is humanity, is that you're a person, I'm a person. Often we're trying to do the best we can. Often there's some levels of trauma. Often we've been influenced by the environments we lived in, like Molly shared about the environment she lived in. My environment I lived in definitely had and still has a response in my life. And so those are very big, enormous things that happen in our lives. And so when we can begin to talk as people, even if we disagree, if we can begin to see humanity in one another, then it really allows us to broaden the conversation, to bring the conversation in places that it maybe hasn't been before. And Power of XYZ is doing, as a group, as a company, we are constantly talking and communicating about our own values, about our own mission, about how we're doing those through our clients. And our hope with our clients is to continue to use our voices, our passion, and their voices and their passion to really globally scale the word of ESD.
Yep, definitely a mission that I know I support and so many others do. Many of us who are with us here today. Thank you to everyone who has been participating in the chat. I really want to thank all of our presenters. I think it's amazing how the presentations interweaved so well and reinforced each other's themes. We go from the expression of the full range of emotion, communicating that, talking about sharing stories, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's in sport, whether it's in families, and speaking about not just what women and others experience in violent or coercive situations, but also what we can do about it and what these presenters are doing about it. So I hope that one takeaway for those watching today is that there is a place for every person in the violence prevention movement and in the empowerment self-defense practice within that movement, whether that is advocating, whether that is being a student of it, starting with the kind of story that that Sarah shared of using ESD to benefit yourself, your community, and the movement that is trying to spread this knowledge globally. There's so much power in the collective, and I think that's something that has been reinforced by all of our speakers today. Thank you all so much for being here. I also would like to make sure that I thank the organizer of this presentation is Federica Lacava, also on the ESD Global staff, and the two tech whizzes who have been making sure that all of our media has been working, which are Mae Porter Holiday and Dyra Fernandez. Thank you two so much. Definitely, glad to have everyone here today. And we would like to actually close out with another short segment of learning about ESD. We're going to share a video from one of the trainings that ESD Global has recently been able to host. These trainings are accelerating all over the world. Even just this week, I'm not even sure how many are going on, 2 or 3, maybe 4, a lot. And I think that, when we talk about scaling and multiplying that number of trainers, I see that actually happening in real time because we're all pulling in the same direction. So if you would like to join that work and participate with us, please do check out all of the organizations that have presented today, find out what the best way for you to get involved is, and stay tuned for more material and ways to get involved from all of these organizations. So with that, I will throw to our closing video, and thank you all so much for being here today.
Fue un cambio muy importante en mí, el sentir mi cuerpo como también fuerte, así como lo es mi espíritu, como lo es mi mente y como lo es mi corazón. El poder encontrar en mi cuerpo un lugar seguro.
ESD Global es una organización que ya tiene sede en varias partes del mundo, que busca compartir, distribuir, propiciar herramientas de autodefensa para las mujeres de los distintos territorios, mujeres, disidencia, personas en movimiento.
La metodología que nosotras utilizamos es diferente porque está enfocada para prepararnos de manera integral, ya sea emocional, físico, psíquico y también a nivel espiritual. Aterrizada la metodología a cada territorio, a cada cultura, y quiere brindarnos herramientas para hacerle frente a los diversos tipos de violencia.
La organización se comprometió con el sueño que tuve de crear más instructoras de autodefensa en México.
Que todas deberíamos de enterarnos de esto, o sea, de verdad es algo súper necesario en un país como este.
Creo que es muy importante que se realicen estos talleres en México porque México, como muchos países, es un país con mucha violencia, mucho machismo y hay mucha vulnerabilidad.
Sabemos que pueden haber muchas resistencias cuando escuchamos la palabra autodefensa. Y si va acompañada de autodefensa feminista es como, ¿qué quieren ellas, no? Nosotras estamos entregando una herramienta que puede ser significativa para las vidas de las personas porque no quiere imponer respuestas únicas ni cerradas, sino que quiere dar opciones de posibilidades.
Pienso que las latinoamericanas o las personas de Abya Yala tenemos un dolor sentido que nos hace ser cómplices entre nosotros. El hecho de que seamos todas mujeres de América Latina compartiendo herramientas para mujeres mexicanas tiene un significado especial. Por lo tanto, creo que es importante que las latinoamericanas estemos haciendo este trabajo porque tiene más sentido que seamos del territorio.
Es crear esta comunidad, es tejiendo esta hermandad entre mujeres, esta sororidad.
Generar conocimiento y compartir herramientas entre mujeres que venimos de territorios similares, que compartimos diferentes realidades, pero que a todos nos lleva o nos une un objetivo en común, que es trabajar en pos de eliminar y abordar las situaciones de violencia.
Lo vamos trabajando en nuestras regiones, en nuestros países, y que en conjunto podemos ser más grandes, más fuertes y podemos crear estos sueños.
A América Latina se reúne e nós temos aqui mais de 8 países representados, o que mostra que a nossa região inicia o processo de disseminação da Empowerment Self-Defense como prevenção de violência.
Es muy bonito cómo se va armando este gran proyecto en Latinoamérica de lo que es la autodefensa, que lamentablemente es algo que no quisiéramos tener que enseñar, pero que hoy en día es necesario.
Estos espacios crean lugares donde también podemos hablar de nuestras vidas y lo que ha pasado en un lugar seguro y empezar a crear estas redes donde podemos ayudar a más personas o apoyar a más personas.
Se va generando una especie de transformación colectiva, horizontal, en donde conocen la metodología ESD, pero también la incorporan en su cuerpo.
El proceso que vivimos en las capacitaciones son procesos duros que atraviesan todo el ser, ¿no? Toda nuestra existencia. Ese vínculo que se genera es un vínculo genuino, porque es un vínculo que va más allá de lo que podemos pensar, incluso más allá de lo que querríamos controlar.
Então, ter a sensação e a oportunidade de dividir e compartilhar com elas os meus conhecimentos e ter um pouco dos conhecimentos delas e de experiências de vida me fazem muito maior e tenho certeza que a elas também. Então é uma honra deixar uma parte de mim com cada uma delas e ter comigo uma parte de cada uma delas.
Vivimos con miedo de sentir que no estamos preparadas para poder responder a alguna agresión. Entonces, estos talleres hacen que me dé cuenta de que todas tenemos muchas capacidades, pero sirve estar conscientes de ellas.
Es muy rico porque cada una trae sus experiencias, trae sus diferentes líneas de trabajo, luchas. Siempre el espejearnos es muy nutritivo.
Nosotras venimos con unas herramientas como instructoras, pero las participantes también tienen herramientas y creamos un espacio donde podemos compartir y aprender de una al otra. Esto es muy importante para, de nuevo, el empoderamiento.
Me recuerda que lo que estamos haciendo funciona, que aquí no venimos a enseñar nada a nadie, sino que venimos a justamente compartir y aprendernos mutuamente en este fuego interno que tenemos para continuar trabajando juntas, a nutrirnos las unas de las otras.
Lo que me llevo es una ruptura de creencias limitantes.
Me llevo sororidad.
Derribar barreras tanto propias, mucha pasión.
De ideas, de no ser capaz.
Acción.
Derribar barreras entre mujeres de distintos contextos. Mucho compromiso.
De no ser lo suficientemente fuerte.
Mucho fuego.
mucho amor y sobre todo mucha colectividad.
¿Por qué sostenerlo? Porque, por decir, o sea, yo creo que no hay mujer que no haya vivido algún tipo de agresión, en especial en Latinoamérica, y creo que nosotras merecemos el derecho de vivir bien, de vivir seguras, de no estar con miedo todo el tiempo.
Nosotras no salvamos a nadie, nosotras trabajamos desde el trabajarte a ti misma, sanarte a ti misma para poder sanar el colectivo. También herramientas contextuales que se adapten a cada territorio. Entonces todo esto para mí es súper inspirador.
Estoy muy orgullosa de mí, de mi equipo, de todo el corazón que le estamos poniendo y la pasión que le estamos poniendo a esto.
Muchas de nosotras venimos de contextos donde somos las locas, las incomprendidas, las raras, y juntarnos ahora y ver esas realidades que cada una vivíamos en nuestros contextos y que ahora estando juntas vemos la capacidad que tenemos por ser raras, por ser diferentes, por estar locas. Creo que es un regalo, ¿no? Poder haber tenido esta oportunidad, primero de encontrarnos en Costa Rica, luego de reencontrarnos aquí en México, y entonces desde ahí repensar todo lo que estas locas podremos hacer con lo que queramos.
Entiéndelo, ser mujer y ser visible, entiéndelo. Tienes tanto que decir, escúchalo, siéntelo, repítelo, combátelo, búscate.